Hello, this is adelikat at taskvideos.org, and today I wanted to do a tutorial about how to get started making tool-assisted speedruns. Now, I'm assuming anybody watching up till now knows what a tool-assisted speedrun is, at least basically, and of course they like them and they're interested and they want to make their own, but they don't have any idea how to get started. So I'm going to explain how we would go about doing that. The first step, of course, would be to get an emulator. I'm going to assume you already know what an emulator is and how to at least open one up and play some games. I'm also going to assume that you know how to use Savestates and load those while you're playing. If you don't know those things, then you should probably go learn those first and then watch this video, as it'll make a lot more sense. Alright, with tool-assisted speedruns though, this is a special emulator feature. So not every emulator is going to have this. You're going to need some that have been custom coded by our community in order to deliver these features. So if you don't know how to do that, let's start there. First, simply go to taskvideos.org. You should definitely already know where that is. And then click on this little emulators tab. Alright, this will give you a list. Let's see if I can get it in this small screen of emulators that you can make tool-assisted movies on. Ones that are submittable to our site. So we have a lot of them here for a lot of different platforms. Today's tutorial though, we're going to use FCEUX. Alright, that is a Nintendo emulator. So it's right here. So you would click that and that would take you to fceux.com, where you should have no trouble finding the latest version. Okay, as of this recording, that latest version is 2.1.5. Alright, so let's say you did that. I've got here my emulator window, which is currently black. And for our tutorial videos, we're just going to do the classic Super Mario Brothers. So what we want to do is load up that game. There it is. Let me play a little bit, right? Classic Super Mario Brothers here. So what I want to do now is talk about how we're going to go about making a tool-assisted movie. Alright, so what a tool-assisted speedrun movie is simply a log of what input is required to perform the movie. So you can look at a movie file is just a series of button presses. Alright, games are divided down to frames. Alright, individual frames in the game. In fact, I can demonstrate that real quick. As you see here, we got Mario walking. There's a frame. There's another frame, and so forth. So what a emulator capable of doing this will do is every one of those frames is going to log the input that you were pressing at that time. That way when you replay this movie, it should perform exactly what you did. Now the key concept to making a tool-assisted movie isn't just the capturing of what you're playing, but the concept of re-recording. And what that is the ability to basically use save states and load them while you're recording the movie. And the emulator would handle the logic of pulling input from the movie and replacing it and things like that. Alright, so let's get started with just seeing an example movie file. Now with FCEUX, the movie file you're going to create is a .fm2 file. That particular format is just text, so you can open this up with any text editor. So let's do that. This is Crimson Editor. You can see the first part of a movie file is simply header information. This just has things like which version of the emulator and things that you've used, which game you're using, and things like that. And then it also has some important settings that would be necessary to know in order to play back the movie. Like for instance here, the 4 score is enabled as 0, and then controllers 1 and 2 are working. And then the author here can put comments and things like that. Starting here on line 13, we actually have the input. So this entire line is actually just code, I guess you want to look at it that way, of what the user pressed on that frame. And all those dots are empty, so that means they actually pressed nothing. So let's scroll down, and actually here on the 54th frame they push T, which actually stands for start. So they push the start button. You can assume that was probably to, you know, get out of the title screen. Getting down here, we can see on this frame they push right here, right plus B. Alright, so all it's doing is logging what each frame what the user is pressing. In theory, since games are deterministic, if you push the same input at the same time, you're going to get the same results. That's kind of the foundation of re-recording and the tool-assisted speedrun concept. Alright, so let's record a movie. I think the first step is just to get acquainted with the basic ideas of the tools. We're not trying to make a record here or anything high quality, we just want to use the tools. So the first thing you want to do is go to File, and then go to Movie, and then select Record New Movie. You'll get a little dialogue here, and you can just fill it out. Put your author if you want. The important thing for what we do, though, is this default parameter here is start. Generally, tool-assisted speedruns that we do start from the time the user pushes the power button. Only under certain circumstances can you start, you know, from a save state or any other future point. So you should always record from start, or power on, it's often called. Alright, so we got all the settings we want, we got the file name .fm2, and we're going to hit OK. At this point, our emulator is paused, as you can see here, and recording. Okay, so now everything I push is going to be recorded. So this is not a very impressive attempt, but I'll just play the game a little bit. Wow, that was terrible. Alright. So now what I want to do is I'm going to stop the movie, and I would like to just play it and see what we did. So let's do it. Alright, there I am. I'm running. I'm dying an embarrassing death to a Goomba. Alright. And that's a tool-assisted movie in essence, right? I'm just recording my input and putting it to a file. It's that simple. Now, as far as a movie, that's not exactly an impressive movie. In fact, that's quite sad. So what we want to do then is use the concept of re-recording, right, in order to undo mistakes and try to, of course, create the perfect playthrough. So what I want to do now, let's go back to the beginning of the movie. I'm eventually going to want to explain the various functions I'm doing right now. Let's just go back to the movie. Right now it is currently playing, and you can tell that by the handy little play button thing right there. Okay, so notice I can pause and unpause the emulator. That's going to be a really important feature. So what we want to do is just kind of get to a point here, and this is where I'd like to redeem myself. Alright, so what I'm going to do is actually create a save state. Like I said, I assume that you already know how to do this. Except the fact that we got a movie loaded does change things compared to what you might be used to for save states. Alright, now I'm actually going to set the movie as editable. There's a hotkey for that. There's also a menu item. I guess I can go ahead and show you that right here. Okay, under movie there's read only. If you set the read only property, then your file will not be changed by whatever you do in the emulator. That's also commonly referred to, well, I don't want to get into that yet. So let's just make our movie editable. Now when I load the save state I just made, we're going to be recording from this point. So let me do that. Notice how the little record button comes on. And that message is kind of annoying. There we go. Now we got the little record button, so I'm going to pick up recording from right here. And I dodge the Goomba. We get a mushroom. And let's go down that pipe. Alright, and I'm going to pause the game, and I'm actually going to stop my movie right there. And so what we did is what you would call a re-record. We did record input. We didn't like our input, so what we did is we fixed it. And that's kind of the essence of what re-recording is. So now I'm going to play the movie, and now the movie will have me playing a little bit better. And I don't die this time, yay. Okay. And there we go. That's essentially making a tool-assisted speedrun. That's the basics, at least. But let's try, let's say, you know, we're trying to beat records here, so that playing was obviously not acceptable. So why don't we try using a few more re-records and maybe some logic here. So what I want to do is, let's start from right here. So now I'm recording. Alright, so see how I hit the pipe. I don't like that. So let's load again. Let's try it again. So theoretically I could just keep hitting that load button, I could keep playing, and at some point I might do something I like. Well, that wasn't it. Let's try again. And so as you notice, what we're really doing is trying, I don't know, we're trying to pursue perfection here, right? We're trying to get better and better. But as you notice, what I'm doing right now isn't very practical. It's very unlikely I'm going to play perfectly for even that short a period of time. So maybe one thing we could do is refine our usage of save states. For instance, let's put one here. And maybe I just want to try to get to here perfectly. Alright, so that was actually pretty good, but let's do something else. And that wasn't pretty good. Maybe I could just record until I'm happy right here, which was actually pretty easy. I got there on the first try. So let's make another save state. Notice I'm using different save slots. Now I can always go back to that previous point if I want, but I also can pick up from right here. So basically, you could do that, and you could try to get a more perfect playing or better playing. Let's actually finish the level so that we have something to compare to. Alright, so we have a speed run of the first level, but it's not good enough. So there's your problem. So a lot of tool-assisted speedruns isn't really the easy part is the recording and using re-records. The hard part is using them effectively and using more tools that would allow you to get better and better results. Alright, so really your pursuit is more of a strategy. How can I create what I want to create? So let's do this. Let's stop our movie there. And I don't want to get too much into tools, but let's at least do the first useful tool for this, and that is a frame counter. Notice right there, 1639. This movie is 1639 frames. Now, that can be our yardstick. Now, I can play this again, and then my goal would, of course, be to get to the end of the level in fewer frames than 1639. Alright. in reality though, we need a more precise measuring point than that. So let's say right there, 1506. Now if I were to rewind this movie to the beginning, now what I could do is go back and try to record certain parts that maybe weren't as fast as they could be. How about right here? See how I turned around there? Now what you're going to find at some point though, it's pretty hard to play the game perfectly. So what we need to do is use some tools here to improve this. And the first and easiest might be to just slow the game down. So let's try that again. I'm playing it right now, but let's lower the speed. Let's lower it again. And again. And even more. Now, if I were to play at this speed, you can imagine that I might have a lot better results. Alright, reflexes aren't going to get in the way as much. And I could even slow down that more, and more. There we go. Now notice you can actually see individual frames. In the early days of speedruns, this is actually how it was done, just by slowing down to about this speed and playing until someone was happy with it. But we got a little bit better tool than that, and that is the frame advance key. So notice now, instead of being... This totally eliminates reflexes because I can just hold down whatever input I want and then advance the frame when I'm ready. So I don't have to worry about the timing of the emulator and when it's going to advance the frame. So what I'm going to do is start recording from right here and show you just how frame advance could help. I've got frame advance on a hotkey, so if I just hit a key on my keyboard, as you can see, it will advance one frame at a time. We've got our nice little frame counter here, and you can see that. Alright, so here it would be nice if I could get to that hole in the pipe without having to turn around. As you can see, I did. Let's do that again. And right there. I missed it by one, but if you notice on frame 624, Mario started to go down the pipe. That actually gives me a good checkpoint. So what I can do is keep trying until I find a frame that I like. Like there is 621. That's actually 3 frames faster than before. And so you can see that once we start using a frame advance key and holding down the input. Also notice down here I've got an input display. It's actually showing me, in this case graphically, the controllers. And so here I can hold down right and B. As you notice, the orange keys are what I pressed the last frame, and the white ones are actually what I'm going to press. What I'm pressing now, which will take effect on the next frame. Okay, so these are some basic tools that I could use to get a much better result. So I got to the pipe, so let's do this. I'm not going to spend too much time getting this perfect, but I do want to show how I could get it a lot better pretty easily compared to what I did before. So if I just hold right and B, notice I'll jump, I'll hit a wall, and then I'll have to regain my speed. So we don't want this. So really what I want to do here is I want to try to delay when I start pushing right, so that as soon as I land and start jumping, I never actually hit the wall, and so I never lose speed. And that was reasonably good. So what I'm actually going to do is put a save state here. I'll put it in slot 1 because I don't want to redo what I just did. So I'll want to kind of rewind back to this point if I make a mistake, because I'm happy with everything up till now. Alright, so now if I just run off of here, well, that sucked. So I'm going to have to jump. Well, I guess I could hold left, right, and then fall. The problem here, though, is while I got to the pipe, and that was kind of nice. Actually, let's get a more precise count. Let me try to just fall and land right into the pipe. Notice he starts going into the pipe at that frame, so that can be kind of a checkpoint for me. So I'm going to put that on a different slot. In this case, I'm going to put it on 9, because that's the highest number we have. Alright, now I'm going to rewind, And here's the first important concept. Now that I've rewinded to this state, I actually haven't lost what I just did. If I load that state, it's actually going to replace the movie with this series of events that you're seeing right here. So I can always come back to this to compare, or I could just come back to it because I've decided that's the best way to do things. Notice the frame count of 842. So our goal really is to get less than 842, and if we can't, then I'm going to keep the save state 9. I'm going to load it, and then I'm going to start recording from there. But I know I can do better, because if I could jump at some point here, maybe I could land here, and notice if you do that, you're going to take advantage of acceleration. So I'm actually going to be able to fall and land on the floor sooner. And if you think about it, essentially the thing, that's the factor that you're optimizing here, is that you want to get on the floor as soon as possible so that you can go into the pipe. So let's try a jump. And notice I missed. Alright, let's advance a little bit more and jump a little bit more. Notice I'm not taking too much care about precision here, so I just want to give a basic idea. Notice he started going into the pipe. That's 840. I'm going to put a save state here. Now I'm going to load the other one, 9. That was our kind of best so far. And I'm actually not really satisfied that that is faster. It's 1 frame faster, but he's not quite as in the pipe. So I'm going to try that again. How about I just pick an arbitrary number for now? I'm going to jump for 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice I've still hit the ground. So why don't I advance some frames? Let's go to 90. That's a round number. And advance 5. Jump for 5 frames and see what happens. Oh, so close. So now, let's go 1 more. No, let's go about 3 more. Jump for 5 frames. Now we're going to fall. Oh, we hit inside the wall. That's going to slow us down. So why don't we do from here? And actually try to push left just a little bit. There we go. And now we can go in. Notice it's 837. Maybe 839. Let's compare there. 41. So notice here we got the same frame count, but best I can tell, Mario's just a little bit further in the pipe. So this is actually a faster version, and the way I do it is, now that I have a faster version, I'm going to put that on slot 9. If you notice, I picked some arbitrary numbers like jumping for 5 frames. Well, maybe 10 frames is better. Maybe 2 frames is better. Maybe there's a better frame I could start the jump. Alright, so when someone who makes tool-assisted speedruns is making one, you can see that's the kind of logic they're doing. And they're trying to hone in on that perfect time to jump and the perfect amount to jump so that they get into that pipe as soon as possible. But let's go on, because this is not supposed to be a tutorial that teaches you everything. We're just trying to get the basics. Alright, so let me try to go up here. Wow, I actually did it. And I'm going to kind of slow down here now, and I want to try to hit that flagpole. And I did it at 1358. I don't think I remember the exact frame count of my very sloppy playthrough, but that is significantly faster. Okay, so I have a pretty nice version. Let's say I did optimize everything I think I could do. Now would be a good time to just watch the movie. So in FCEUX, you can actually just right-click, and you have a play movie from beginning. I'm going to unpause it now and just watch. So now I have a, what should be a little more impressive than that first attempt, and way more impressive than me, of course, dying at a Goomba right away. I promise I don't normally do that. And there we go, no slowdowns on the pipe, and then we landed on the flagpole. Alright, so if anybody's watching this and knows more about how to optimize Mario, of course they're probably screaming at me because there's a lot of tricks in there I'm completely ignoring. But the point is that I just wanted to give a basic idea to people. So let's see kind of a more polished result. The current record for a warped run of Super Mario Brothers, meaning taking the warps, is done by Happily. So what I want to do is actually just show you that movie, and we can compare what I did to what he did. So what I'm doing is actually just dragging the movie file over onto the emulator, and when I let go, it'll start to play it. And notice the jumping at the beginning. That's actually a trick to save time. Here he avoids the wall, makes a perfect jump, and lands onto the pipe. Alright, and then here we've got, wow, a glitch. Alright. If you don't know what glitch that is, we actually have some documentation on that if you go to the Game Resources section of the site. Alright, so that kind of blew by fast, so here's a quick way to use. You can actually use save states while the movie's in play mode, okay? The first thing you want to do, notice you can set to whether it's editable or not. We're going to put read only. That's very important. If I load a save state while it's editable, of course I'm going to destroy this movie I'm watching. Alright, the moral of the story there, make lots of backups. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is load a state I happened to make while I was watching it. Alright, so I didn't make that state, never mind. Let's actually go back to the beginning, and I'm going to make a save state right here. Notice that jumping he did. If I load it, I can keep rewinding that point as much as I want and actually watch what he's doing. That's actually another really important thing about speedruns. It's not just about recording, it's also about detailed watching and observation. So let's actually do that in frame advance. Notice he makes a quick jump. I saved a little too late. Let's actually get it about right here. Alright. Look at the input display there. Mario appears, and then what happened there? Notice he's pressing left and right at the same time. That's often a trick in Nintendo games because they didn't anticipate the idea that you could even do that. The reality is you can. So what that does is actually speed him up initially just a little bit. From that point he's actually going to make a jump because Mario's acceleration is a little bit better in the air. Notice as soon as he lands again he's going to jump again. Well, he's actually going to run for a frame. This is going to push Mario speed a little bit more, but only for one frame. So on the next frame, notice the left there, I don't think I want to get into why he pushed left for one frame. That's a little more complicated. But he jumps again. So as you see in that one little moment, those two little jumps are actually a rather complicated series of events. Events that would be completely impossible in real time. So the essence of what a tool-assisted speedrun is going to do is take advantage of these tools that allow me to go frame by frame, and there's actually a lot of other tools that have a lot of advantages. They allow us to kind of go beyond anything that would be humanly possible. Alright, we're doing inhuman events here. And so actually in these few frames, we actually have a very complicated series of events, but all of them are designed to get Mario running at full speed sooner than if you just held right and B, which would be the intuitive result. I think most people would say, well, if I want to run real fast, I just hold right, press B, and I'm done. But this goes to show you that when you get down to the frame level of this game, there's actually a lot more that can be done, and a lot more, you see a lot more about the game. And so you can find tricks like that that can save frames. Sometimes tricks save seconds or minutes. Sometimes they just do a few frames. But the tool-assisted speedrunner is always looking for different tricks, ideas, input that's going to lower that frame count. Alright, so I guess that's about about everything I wanted to cover in this particular video. The idea here wasn't to really get into all the advanced tools or how to make a quality movie. It was just enough to get you familiar with the tools enough to make some recordings. I think, and I always recommend this to people who want to get started recording, is to don't just jump into trying to make a movie as optimized as this Mario movie that's quite possibly a perfect movie. If someone's watching this in the future and it's been beaten, hey, at the time, sure did seem perfect. That's not the point right away, I think, because it's real easy to get overwhelmed with that. I think the point is just to record yourself playing and maybe give yourself an easy goal, like get to the flagpole. And then what you want to do is get there faster and faster. Keep trying. Your goal should be to keep improving that. And along the way, you'll be surprised at how quickly you realize that once you have that problem, you start realizing solutions that improve your ability to do that. I probably didn't word that well. Basically, what I'm saying is that everything from here on out is just learning tools that can help you achieve that goal better or faster, or maybe make it easier to understand. And you're learning tricks about the game that are going to save you time so that you can get there. Of course, time isn't the only factor here. I just don't think I want to get into that just yet. So at this point, I would recommend anybody who's trying to learn to do a tool-assisted movie is probably to play with the tools that I just did. So let's review. The first thing would be the record movie dialog here, right? Under File, Movie, Record. And that'll allow someone to start their own movie, okay? On FCEUX, you have a pause and a play and record, right? When you're recording, you'll have a record symbol here. At any point, if you want to play your movie, you simply stop it. FCEUX has a nice little right-click menu that I made, so I'd like you to take advantage of it. And so you can stop your movie, and of course, you can play your movie. There's also a play movie dialog here, so that you can select a movie you might want to play and get some information. Of course, you can always just drag and drop the movie that you made right onto the emulator. That's usually what I do because it's faster. Or there's an even faster way, and that is if you just recorded or played a movie, there's this load last movie. So you can just click that and get your movie right back in there. The other tools would be the pause button. This is a hotkey. It's the pause key by default. Of course, you can remap that any way you like. So actually, let's show the hotkey dialog, just in case for some reason you've never seen it. What I did is I went to Tools. No, I didn't go to Tools. I went to Config. And then you can't see it down here, unfortunately, but it's Map Hotkeys. And I'll bring a little dialog, and here you can kind of customize whatever you want. I highly recommend changing what pause is mapped to, because pause is generally, the key is very far away from where your hands are going to be. And of course, that's assuming that you're using a keyboard. You might be trying to use a joypad. I always map it to space, personally. And then frame advance is in. That's the other tool that you want. Once you can pause it, and you can hit frame advance to go frame by frame. While you're doing that, you want to be holding the input that you want to press. Let's stop the movie for that quick review. So notice I'm holding right and B, and while I'm doing that, I'm simultaneously hitting the frame advance key. If I were recording right now, we would be capturing all that input into my movie. Alright, so you got pause, you've got frame advance, and of course you've got your save states and load states. And just with that, you can actually get a lot done. And a lot of really great movies have been made just with that alone. Then of course we have a very important tool here, and that's the frame counter. You can enable that by going to Config, Display, and then you can barely see it, but it's frame counter. Input display is I think very critical, and it's right up here. So you can turn those things on so you have a better idea of what you're doing. And that's about it. I would encourage you to kind of play around with these ideas, see what you can make, and then go on to the next tutorial video. Alright, have fun speedrunning.